Hello and welcome once again to another installment of Chocolate Chat. I am Chocolate Yoddah, spelled Y-O-D-D-A-H, because film studios are litigious. And with me is Jeremiah Dorph, and he has a podcast called What If They're Wrong, which is an intriguing name. Before we get into the topic, why don't you just give a brief overview of your podcast, yourself, that kind of thing.
Okay, so my name is Jeremiah. I've been into conspiracies since around 2010, I would say. I had a NDE, a near-death experience, and kind of got me down this path of looking into things, trying to figure out what we're doing here, why is things the way they are, and I started my podcast about 2 weeks ago, What If They're Wrong? And I just wanted to cover a bunch of topics that I'm interested in. And I know a lot of other people are interested in looking into things, and things that are presented to us aren't always exactly what they are. So it's
Right.
good to try to look behind it and not just take everything at face value. So,
Absolutely. And I'm good. I'm glad you're tackling the easy questions. Why are we here? What are we, all that stuff. And you know what? Before we begin, I know already people's antennas are going to be up and they're going to start thinking, oh, conspiracy theories and all that stuff. So I'll put it to you this way. Shakespeare said in the personage of Hamlet that there is more in heaven and earth, Horatio, than is dreamt of in your philosophy. And what that means to me is that basically anything is possible. All right. And I have evidence for that. Right. And it's the simplest idea that I can think of to break down what is real and what is possible. All right. And that is, we can't hear what dogs hear. Right. There are frequencies, like the literal dog whistle. I know that phrase is being used for other things now, but there are actual dog whistles. And when you blow into them, humans can't hear the sound that they produce, but a dog can. So in a very literal sense, what a dog hears is in another dimension than what we can hear, right? So if we know that to be a fact, then isn't kind of anything possible, And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, and possibly the only thing we might get to today, is CERN. Now, I became aware of CERN indirectly through the Large Hadron Collider, right? I didn't think I remember in the late 90s that was a thing that they were talking about, and I was fascinated by the idea of the collider. But I didn't pay much attention to the organization. It wasn't until Dan Brown's, I think, second book, where he opened up talking about CERN, that I started to get into it. And I was fascinated by this organization that, like, basically nobody talks about. And I know that was a topic of one of your episodes. So why don't we talk about that for a bit?
yeah, it's kind of strange that I ask many people that I come in contact with, and a lot of them don't even know what CERN is. They've never even heard of it. It's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So that right there should say something, considering it's supposed to be a facility trying to figure out the origins of the universe. But yet not many people even know what it is or what it um, is doing. So it's basically, CERN is the European Council of Nuclear Research, and they're looking for the God particle, so to speak, which they claim to have found in 2012, which is part of the conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
But they're basically working with molecules and atoms and stuff like that, and trying to figure out why the universe is here and what created it, basically supporting their Big Bang Theory.
Right. Okay, so now I know that 2012 is the year that the conspiracy was born, so to speak. So what happened in 2012?
So a lot of people um, say that things just haven't really felt right since 2012. Time seems to be speeding up a little bit. Events are happening more frequently and they're becoming more grandiose, I guess. And
Hmm.
just things just don't seem right. And then right around 2012 is when the Mandela effect, I'm sure you've heard of it. A lot
I
of
have heard
people
of it,
have
but
been talking.
explain it. I'm not sure how much I buy into it, but I have heard of it. But why don't you explain what it is?
So the Mandela effect is like, do you want my opinion of it or the actual like?
Whichever way you want to present it.
So I think that in 2020 or 2012, when CERN rebooted the Hadron Collider, because it had been shut down, so they rebooted it in 2012, and I believe that in the process of doing so, they altered our reality in some way. Um,
Hmm.
they might have merged us with a separate timeline, a separate parallel universe, because a lot of top scientists believe in the parallel universe theory that there's
Hmm.
random multiple universes that coexist with ours.
Right.
So,
And this is a lot of quantum theory and that kind of thing, and of course what Marvel is banking on in most of their films.
yeah, definitely Marvel with their, character can die, but then they'll switch to an alternate universe and he's back alive
Right.
and stuff like that. Um,
Right.
so basically, when they rebooted it in 2012, I think they shifted our or merged our reality with a parallel universe reality. And the Mandela effect is like things have changed. A lot of people remember things a certain way, but they are not even the right way. So
Right.
like
And specific
Berenstain
to
Bears.
Mandela, if I yeah if I recall correctly, it's called the Mandela effect because some people remember that Mandela died either before prison or in prison, and then of course other people remember that he came out of prison and became president, where he was in Africa. So, and yes, the Berenstain Bears. Some people remember them as the Berenstain Bears. Some people remember them as the Berenstain Bears. So yeah, it is an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, like some of the ones I don't know. Like I'm not a huge, as weird as it sounds, I'm not the biggest proponent of the Mandela effect, but I do
Mm-hmm.
believe it exists. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's due to something they did that altered our reality slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people want to say, like, well, why is it just movies and, um, you know, labels of things? But I think it's more than that. The sun being one of those things. The sun, growing up, now I'm almost 40, so I've been around for a while. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, the sun was always like yellow or reddish orange, yellow, and we would always draw it as such. But now the sun is bright white, or a silverish hue to it, and
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's another thing that I think comes from this whole shifting of our universe and reality. When they rebooted CERN in 2012, there's a lot of weird things going on with CERN, the location of it, and the fact that some weird happenings have happened there. Like there was a Wakefield experiment, and that was in 2016, and it caused like ripple effects to go across the United or the globe, and supposedly it went to like South America and caused blackouts and stuff like that. There's also instances of weird clouds and lightning and stuff like that above CERN facility. There's
Mm-hmm.
a plane, flight A7301, that was supposed to land in Bolivia, but it ended up in an island off of Spain. So just some weird stuff going on.
That seems way off.
Yes, way off.
Yeah.
And it all seems to happen around times when they are either rebooting CERN or doing something there. Um,
And you
so,
mentioned the Wakefield experiment. What was that?
to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure what it is. I
But it
haven't
was,
had a
around. Well, you said it wasn't 2012. It was 2016.
yes, in 2016.
Okay,
They did
gotcha.
this, and this is what some people claim caused the blackouts in South America, because supposedly there was,
Interesting.
I don't remember it myself, but there's
Hmm.
supposedly blackouts in Brazil and Peru, and they believe, some people believe, that it was due to this Wakefield experiment that they're doing. A lot of people think that CERN is creating earthquakes and stuff around the world. Um, I haven't looked into the research of that, so I'm not positive, but just a lot of strange things that happen, and it involves CERN. So,
Right. So what's the most compelling, either bit or several bits of information or proof or facts or whatever it is surrounding CERN that you find the most interesting?
um, for facts, I just look at all the weird instances that happen around it, and
Hmm.
if you want to bring in the religious side of it, there is a group of people who believe CERN is trying to open portals to like hell or some other dimension. And there is a report of a guy, I don't know his actual name, but they called him Mr. Sergio. And he claims that he worked there and they are able to open portals, and but they're small and they only last for a small amount of time. So it's just a lot of weird things going on around this facility. And then there's also the Goddard Tunnel, which is about 3.5 hours away, which some people link to CERN too. And their strange opening ceremony, that's very demonic looking. So it's just very strange. They have like this man dressed up as a goat, and there's people with like upside down trees, and they're in robes, and they're offering these trees to this goat guy, and a lot of
Never a good
people,
sign.
yeah. And there's
Yeah.
this weird person, I think it's a woman, naked, dressed, or she has like a loincloth on, but her breasts are showing. And she's flying around with these wings and a creepy baby's mascot head on. It's the weirdest opening
Wow.
ceremony I've ever
Yeah.
heard of. So it's just,
Wow. Wow.
yeah. And then this goat guy runs around and is having like sex with the people there, or like something sexual. And then later on in the ceremony, one of the women comes out pregnant or whatever. And it's just a very strange, like, why would you do that for an
Yeah.
opening of a tunnel? Like, it's very
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, and you know, a weird ceremony wouldn't be complete without some kind of sexual component to it. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So that's pretty fascinating. And now, when you mentioned 2012, and I don't know if this is uh, correlated at all, but I know that that was the year where people thought the Mayan calendar indicated that the world was going to end, which I know from looking into the Mayan calendar that that was not what they were saying at all. They were saying their calendar was going to end then, but a lot of people still had that firm belief that 2012 was the end, and there were some films made. One of them was, I think, called 2012, and you know, I don't know if have you heard anything regarding a tie-in to CERN and the Mayan calendar? Do they have anything to do with one another?
So the 2012, obviously the world didn't like end, but there is a lot of researchers that say that the Mayans weren't saying it was the end of the world, so to speak, that it was a end of an age.
Right.
So the end of whatever age it was, I think in India they call them Kali Yugas.
Hmm.
where they believe time's cyclical, so it's not linear. We're not just going on and on and on. Like everything repeats and there's
Mm.
cycles. So it's like a circle instead of a straight line. And the Mayans, or some researchers say that the Mayans were just saying that cycle is done and we're heading
Yeah.
into another cycle.
Right.
And the them saying they found the God particle or the um, Higgs boson particle in 2012, could they have booted up that machine and ended that cycle and started a new cycle? Because, like I
Right.
said in the beginning, things just seem a little off since then, and a lot of events around the world have just um, got worse, I guess you could say,
Right.
since then. With the whole Brexit and then all the stuff in
Yeah.
our country that is going on with the race relations and this division of people and
Right.
president and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. 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 Hiring a carney as president was kind of interesting, but um, with regard to Brexit, that I mean, to me, that's just a terrible decision that now they can see is absolutely a terrible decision, and I think they're trying to reverse it at this point.
obviously, conspiracies wrap within other conspiracies and stuff like that. Everything is kind of connected. So, are all these things taking place to usher in this new world? So, like, a lot of people say that there's going to be a new world order or a new global government, new global currency. It's in the Bible that all this stuff is supposed to take place, with the mark of the beast and all that stuff. And is all these events, are they happening to usher in this new age, so to speak, this new world order? It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, it definitely is, and for me, when I think about the issues of the day, I'm firmly in the camp that history does repeat itself. I don't see any of this as unusual. I remember sitting with a friend, and he said, "Oh, America's never been more divided than it is now." And this was in 2019 that he said that. And I remember saying to him, I guess you missed the class on the Civil War, because I'd say we were markedly more divided than we are now, and it's just another phase of the division that has always existed. Like America is referred to as the United States, but I never call it that because it's literally never been united, not from day one. Even leading up to the inception of the country and the Declaration and all that stuff, it wasn't united. There were sharp divisions that still exist now, and the change from the Republican Party from being the party of Lincoln to now being what they are now, that's all a pretty logical progression based on the events that happened politically from Lincoln's time to about 1965 or so. So I don't know if what's happening now is necessarily evidence of anything that changed in 2012. But it is interesting to think about the possibilities, that somehow things got rebooted and then the course that we were on got shifted. Some people talk about being in a simulator. I don't know if that factors into some of the things that you've discovered.
Um, I'm kind of torn between the religious aspect and just the metaphysical aspect, I guess. So,
Mm-hmm.
like like I said before, there's a large group of people who think that CERN is dabbling with the devil and portals to hell, and they want to open up the gates of hell. And they say in Revelations it talks about opening up the gate and stuff like that. And a lot of people put that on CERN, saying CERN is the gate to hell or whatever. And they're trying to bring about this thing on Earth or whatever, hell on Earth basically.
Yeah.
And I don't know, not 100% sold on either. I think that the scientists are dealing with forces that they don't fully understand. They don't really know what the outcomes are going to actually be. Stephen Hawkins even said in one of his writings that CERN could destroy the planet or the universe. And Neil deGrasse Tyson claimed that we really don't know the ramifications of what we're messing with CERN and trying to find this God particle. So we could just be dabbling in forces we don't know and then dealing with the outcomes after the fact.
Well, sure. I mean, generically speaking, can't that be said of any science, any scientific pursuit, even medicine? That there's often unseen or unforeseen consequences to pursuing anything. Like when Einstein was working on his theories, you know, he didn't foresee Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but his theories are what ushered in that reality, and he hated that. He wrote about it, and it was clear that he hated that consequence. But you know, so many other things were made possible from his theories as well. So it's just a kind of a constant reality that as you get into science and you get into experimentation and and again any avenue of science, that there is going to be the possibility of unintended consequences.
Yeah, I think it was what Oppenheimer after the nuclear bomb went
Oh
off on the
yeah,
testing facility.
yeah,
He said,
yeah.
"I'm death, destroyer of the worlds" or whatever.
Yeah, he was quoting the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was he was really really upset at what he was involved in,
yeah, he
and
did
again,
not.
that wasn't his intention, but that's when he saw like the reality of what he was involved in. It kind of crushed him.
Yeah, um, so yeah, I think they're. I personally believe they kind of know what they're doing, but not 100%. I think they're
Right.
trying to. I think they're trying to discredit religion, and that's why they're searching for this God particle to say, this is what happened with, this is how the Big Bang happened, and then they can, poo-poo anyone who has religious beliefs, is what I personally believe is what they're trying to attempt. But I think there's bigger forces involved. I think there's a hidden hand that's behind a lot of what's going on. Call it
Right.
the devil or whatever you want, Illuminati, whatever.
Yeah. All right. So let me sort of put forth another possibility. So is it possible that scientists are just doing what scientists do, and they're looking for whatever they're looking for, and they don't necessarily have religion on their mind at all?
Um, I mean, it's possible. I can't say it's not possible,
Hmm.
but I just feel like these the modern scientific community is just so hell bent on getting rid of the spiritual, the religious, and I'm not even for like religious doctrine because I don't even think
Hmm.
that's good, but I don't think I personally believe there's spirituality. I believe that there's some type of creator. I'm not 100% sure what that is or who that is, but I totally believe, especially after my near-death experience. Um,
Hmm.
I just think that modern science is just out to explain everything with science instead of taking into account there's other forces
Right.
around.
All right. Well, yeah, that's interesting. So, what have you seen that suggests that scientists might be anti-religious?
Um, it's just the vibe that they give off, especially in the media and stuff like that. It's like if you're against, I'll just say it, if you're against the vaccine, then you're like an evil person because science. Just take the vaccine because it's science or whatever. But, you know, personally, there are, now I've got vaccinated, so, um, you know, make of that as you will. But there are legitimate concerns with it. I mean, it was rushed out. We don't know the long-term side effects of it and stuff like that, but you can't speak out against it because they'll call you a crazy kook or whatever. So,
Maybe so. But all right. So let's take another approach to it. And you know, I have no dog in this fight, but if let's say scientists are somehow angling against religion, is there anything that religion has answered, either that science hasn't answered or has answered better than science has?
um, the problem is that unless you've experienced something if you haven't experienced, um, and I hate using the word religion because it's loaded with a lot of bad um, connotation, but I'll just say spirituality. Um, there's a lot of I just lost track of what I was saying. um,
Well, the question again was, you know, has religion answered anything that science has not been able to answer, or have they answered anything better than science has?
well, I think the research into near-death experiences has kind of, in my mind, proven that there's something beyond this life. When you have someone who has been clinically dead for 18 minutes and comes back to life and can tell you exactly what the doctors were doing while he was dead and stuff like that, how else would he have known that was going
Hmm.
on? And then you have
Okay,
people who are more in tune with um, spirituality that can sense things. So I just think there's no, I don't think either side can give you a concrete answer. Like, how did the universe come out of nothing? They can't really
hmm,
explain that. And that's why they're
okay,
searching for this God particle that created the Big Bang. So,
sure. Well, having unanswered questions doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, they're both on equal footing, right? So when you say research is being done on near-death experiences, who's doing that research?
people way smarter than me. um, bunch of doctors. I don't know the names
Right.
off the top of my head, but
Right.
there's
Okay,
definitely if
so
you
so doctors are involved in science, right? So you know, the idea of there being some kind of mutually exclusive thing between science and spirituality, I don't think really has legs. If you're talking about science and religion, yes, those are two very different things, and I like to bifurcate the religious institution and the believer, all right, because those are two different things, right? Like, and if we get down to brass tacks, the fact is that almost no one you know is living according to religious principles, because if you try to live according to the Bible, you will be running around murdering people constantly. All right. So no one's doing that. And it's funny that there, when it comes to the Bible, and this is a topic that I've been fascinated by since I was a child, and I've been having this conversation for decades. Um, People tend to pick and choose what they want to focus on. Like uh, people would justify their hatred of homosexuals by literally a couple of passages in the Bible and ignore the fact that Jesus Christ himself, according to the book, never mentioned anything about homosexuality. And then they'll turn around and say that the New Testament is supposed to supersede the Old Testament. But it's like, well, wait a second. All the stuff of, the very little about homosexuality that's in the Bible is in the Old Testament. So, like, which is it? And then if you're going to cite the Old Testament, then why don't you cite the fact that if you know a woman has had premarital sex, that you're supposed to drag her to her father's house and stone her to death in front of him? Or if you eat lobster, you're supposed to kill somebody. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that we just know are to be ignored, but some people decide, well, yeah, we're going to ignore all that stuff. But the one thing that resonates with me, which is, let's say, hatred of homosexuals, then that's the thing that I'll quote the Bible on. So it becomes kind of a disingenuous argument.
Yeah, that's why I don't really try to talk about religion as like an
Right.
institution. I'm way more spiritual in my
Right.
philosophy, especially after my near-death experience. I know that it is bigger than the Bible. Um,
Gotcha.
and I don't want to
Yeah,
sound
and that's what I want
blasphemous
to
by that,
focus on
but
is, yeah, like I say, leave the institutions out of it, and like whatever you believe in, like literally whatever gets you through the night and helps you be a good person, I'm all for it. I don't care what it is. You believe in that there's a teacup circling the universe and that helps you be better, that helps you sleep at night, that's fine. If you believe there's a sun god, if you think there's a goat-headed guy, it doesn't matter to me. Your belief doesn't mean anything to me beyond its ability to help you feel better about yourself. And as long as you're not harming anybody else with your belief. But as soon as you tell me, well, my belief makes me hate these people or those people over there, then that's when I have a problem with it.
yeah, and the Bible itself has been picked and choosed. I mean, they left out a bunch of books that were
Sure.
supposed to be part of it, like Enoch and Methuselah and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like I said, I don't really fall into the religious category. I'm more into the spiritual, and I
Gotcha.
100% believe that there's something spiritual going on behind s- things we can't see.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you on that. And so since you've mentioned it a couple of times, let's take some time and talk about your near death experience. I'll tell you very quickly that I had surgery in 2012, brain surgery, and a tumor was removed, and so I definitely, uh, as far as I know, didn't die, but I definitely relate to the idea of an experience like that changing your perspective. So if you want to talk about that a little bit, I'd be very happy to hear it.
Yeah, sure. And it's something I want to dive into deeper on my podcast eventually. I want to interview people who have had near-death experiences because there there are a lot of commonalities, but there's differences too. And
Mm,
that's what makes it kind of interesting to me is there's a lot of commonalities, but then there's differences. So trying to figure out why that happens.
right.
Um, so for me, I was extremely depressed and almost suicidal before I had my NDE. I was not a very good person. I'll just say it. Um, and I had my NDE. I was laying in bed sleeping, and I just remember the uh, the black tunnel with the light at the end that everyone says when you die you see. Well, I was floating in this dark tunnel, and the bright light at the end, super white and bright. I was floating towards it, and I wasn't floating fast. It was pretty like, I don't know, just like you're walking. And about halfway up, I just felt this sense of love and warmth and just peace and like a feeling I will never feel on earth ever. Um,
Mm,
Even my best day that I've had so far in my 40 years uh, doesn't even come close to the love and warmth and everything that I felt when I was floating up. So as I got closer to this light, and this light is like super bright, but it doesn't hurt your eyes to look at like the sun. So I'm just staring at this light, feeling this overwhelming love and warmth, and I start seeing silhouettes of people at the end of the tunnel, and I can't make out their faces or anything, just looks like silhouettes. And I was floating up and I see them and they start saying, "It's okay, come to the light. You're fine. Don't fear. Don't worry, you're fine." They just kept saying it over and over again in the most like loving voice tone. And they're just like, "It's okay, you're fine." Like a mother would say to her child. And
right.
uh, I was floating up. I got about a quarter of the way to the light, and something just clicked inside of me. And I was just like, "No, I'm not ready. I'm not done here yet." And I kept yelling out to the light at the top of my lungs, like, "I'm not finished. I have a mission to do on Earth. I'm not done. I'm not ready yet." And about 5 times after that, I felt this force, like I was getting shot out of a gun, and right into my body. And I woke up gasping for air, like I haven't breathed in like a long time, like I was drowning. And this pain in my chest and my heart felt like someone was squeezing it. And I, my brother was living with me at the time. I went to him. This was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, "Josh, wake up. You gotta take me to the hospital. I think I'm having a heart attack." Because at the time I didn't think I had a near death. I thought I was having a heart attack. And
Right.
he was begrudgingly, he took me to the hospital because it's 3 a.m. He's like, "Come on, man." And I was like, "Dude, I think I'm having a heart attack." And
Right.
so he took me to the hospital. I was there for the rest of the morning. They did all these tests, took me up to machines, and um, did blood work and everything. And they came back and they're like, "You're free to go. You're healthy as can be. No, nothing's wrong with you." And for 3 days after left the hospital, my heart, it didn't hurt, but it felt like someone was lightly squeezing on it for like 3 days after. And it was a little bit before I started looking into, I think I came across near death experiences by accident. Um, there's a show called Coast to Coast AM, and it's big in California and around the world, but they do conspiracy stuff and weird ghost stories and stuff like that. And I had listened to someone talking about near death on there, and I was like, "Holy crap, I had a near death experience." And um,
Well,
ever since, I've just been down the rabbit hole looking deeper into things and brought me to here making my own conspiracy podcast.
right. Yeah. And so, did you ever find out what actually happened to you when, during that time that you were moving toward the tunnel or toward the
So,
light, rather?
so through looking into near-death experiences, there's two main experiences that people have. Now they vary a little bit, but the main things are either you go to the light and you are reunited with people that you knew that are dead now, or you're just in a very nice place. The other experiences are you are in complete darkness, cold, and you feel like you're alone and you're disconnected from God or the source or whatever. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
them said that they felt like they were just isolated and alone. And um, then there's a small percentage, very small percentage, that say they have went to like what you would think of as hell. And but it's very small, which is weird. And
Mm.
um, but there are a small percentage that claim they have gone to hell, and it's obviously they said it was horrible, and they've got a second chance at life.
Yeah.
And
Right.
also through looking into near-death experiences, a lot of them change their life for the better after the experience. A lot of
Right.
them are, you know, used to be alcoholics, drug addicts, really bad people, um, or just super depressed like I was. And
Mm-hmm.
after that experience, their life just changes and they start trying to be better people. Um,
Right.
so even if it's all caca or whatever, at least it's changing people for better.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's, it would be unfair for anyone to try to decide what that experience is because it's based on what the person feels. Like you mentioned earlier that you were not a good person, and obviously you stated that in the past tense. So, do you feel like a better person now?
Yes, definitely a better person. I mean, I still have a lot of work to do, but
Mm-hmm.
um, definitely better than I was before.
Yeah.
Um,
Listen, I've been involved with self development since 1987, and I feel like even after 34 years, that I have work to do. I mean, and I'm much better than I was. But here's my point: um, if you felt like you weren't a good person before, and then you had this experience, and now you feel like you're a better person and working to be even better than you are, then who is to say that experience is nonsense or not real? Like that's a ridiculous thing to say.
See, I was at first I was a denier in the near death thing, even when I first heard about it. Um, but the fact that 3 days after my experience, my heart was still bothering me, but the hospital said I was fine and have completely healthy, like I don't see anything that explains that. Um,
Right.
so that led me to say, yes, I had a near-death experience because
Mm-hmm.
there's no other way for me to explain. And like you said, if you haven't experienced it, you really just wouldn't understand. Like a
Right.
lot of things, if you're not in someone else's
Absolutely.
shoes, you won't understand.
Yeah. Hey, try to explain the taste of sugar to someone who's never tasted it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
or
there's
color
no
to
way to
blind
get them to
people.
understand. Right, right. Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, so now what would you say is the overarching lesson or takeaway that you got from your near death experience?
That is something I'm still wrestling with in my brain. I want to know why I was yelling, I still have stuff to do here. I still have a mission on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Is it my podcast? I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I just vividly remember yelling at the figures in the light that I still have stuff to do here. I still have a
Right.
mission and I'm not ready to pass on yet. And I will
Yeah.
say that since my near death experience, I'm not afraid of dying anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm afraid of not doing enough here on Earth before I
Mm.
die.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as much as I hate to see fear drive anybody, if you're going to have fear, that's a better fear to have than fear of dying. Because my main podcast is called The Persistent Rumor, and it's named that because I say that death is a persistent rumor. Nobody knows for sure what happens or, what that whole thing is. So if the persistent rumor is true that we're all going to die, then the only thing that matters is what we do when we're here. And your podcast might be the thing, because this podcast is really dedicated to the idea of just giving people different ways to think about things. And it's also about my coaching and just really like, how do you make yourself a better person? How are you better for the people around you? How do you make your life a masterpiece? How do you live the happiest life that you could possibly live? And, there might be someone that listens to your podcast down the line and hears something that becomes very valuable to them. You just really never know.
Yeah, so with my podcast right now, it's just solo, and I just basically talk about different conspiracies. I do a lot of research and try to present everything that I find so that people don't have to go search in the dark webs or whatever to
Sure,
find
sure.
stuff. And but I want to turn it into more of an interview style like you do, but I want to have it catered towards people who have claim they have been abducted by aliens or claim they've had a near-death experience, and I just want to be able to let them have a voice and share their experience, and hopefully without, you know, feeling ridiculed or called crazy person.
Well, there was a film, I think in the 70s, James Earl Jones was in it, and I think Esther Warren. It was about a real life couple, interracial couple who was abducted. And the thing that was really freaky about it, to make an impossibly long story impossibly short, is that when the wife was under hypnosis, she described a star system. And at the time, there was no knowledge of this star system, but later on, the drawing that she made to illustrate the star system matched up exactly with an actual star system that was out there.
Yeah,
So
that was the
again,
Benny and Barney Hill
yes,
abduction.
yes. And so back to what Shakespeare said, there's more in heaven and earth than is dreamt of in your philosophy. I mean, anything really is possible. So I definitely look forward to hearing your podcast. And if you decide to talk to people about near-death experiences, I definitely want to hear that as well. And in the minute or two we have left, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Okay, so my name's Jeremiah, obviously, and I have the What If They're Wrong podcast, and it's What If They're Wrong with a question mark at the end. When
Mm-hmm.
you look it up, you'll see What If They're Wrong with a half an alien face next to it. It's
Mm.
kind of creepy looking, but
And that's an audio podcast at this point, correct?
it's just audio at this point.
Okay.
And
All right.
I try to upload every week, but I might have to do every 2 weeks just for the amount of research that I've been doing. I've been reading
Gotcha.
a lot and stuff like
Excellent.
that. But I do plan
And
on
you have
doing interviews.
a Facebook page as well?
I do. I have a Facebook group, What If They're Wrong? Same thing, the What If They're Wrong with the half an alien face next
Mm.
to it. So you
Excellent.
can join it. It's open
And
to anybody. And
oh,
you can
cool,
share
cool.
whatever conspiracy you want on there.
Excellent. I'll definitely be joining that, and I'll put those links in the description below. Jeremiah Dorph, thank you so much for joining me today. And once
Thank you for
again,
having me
this
on.
is
I love
my
talking
pleasure.
about this
And
stuff.
yeah. And once again, this is Chocolate Chat. I'm Chocolate Yoddah. Peace, love, and granola. We'll talk to you all soon.